At 3:42 a.m. on a random Tuesday night, a shadow crept slowly across Elena's bedroom window, fingers wrapped around the frame. The lock was old, the street was dead silent, and the only thing standing between Elena and that shadow was a 140-pound Cane Corso that the entire world had already written off as worthless. This is the story of 47 families who walked away, and the one woman who didn't. They chained him to the shelter gate at 2 a.m., left him shivering in the dark like discarded trash. He was 5 months old. His name, scrawled on a torn piece of paper attached to his collar, was Zen. The breeder's final words to the shelter worker were short and brutally final. He's worthless, won't even guard a doorway. The shelter listed him with a bio that made adoption nearly impossible. Cane Corso, 5 months, extremely gentle, no protective instincts whatsoever, needs an experienced owner who fully understands he will never be a guard dog. 47 people looked at his kennel over the following months. 47 people walked past. Some laughed, some shook their heads. One man stopped, read the sign, looked at Zen and muttered, "What's even the point?" and kept walking. Zen watched every single one of them go, and each time he pressed a little tighter against the back wall of that cold cage, as if he was trying to make himself smaller, as if disappearing might hurt less than being seen and rejected again. But here's what nobody tells you about a dog that's been abandoned at 5 months old, rejected by 47 strangers, and labeled defective by the people who were supposed to protect him. He doesn't stop hoping. He just gets quieter about it. Elena wasn't even looking for a dog the night she saw his photo. Her German Shepherd, Thor, had died 11 months earlier, and the emptiness in her apartment still hit her in waves. At 6 a.m., when there were no paws clicking on the hardwood, at dinner, when the bowl in the corner stayed full, at 11 p.m., when the left side of the bed stayed cold. She saw Zen's photo by accident, those deep brown eyes staring directly at the camera, not begging, not performing, just looking, completely unguarded. Something cracked open in her chest. When she reached into his kennel, Zen didn't bark, didn't back away. He pressed his entire head into her palm, then flopped onto his back, all 4 paws in the air, round puppy belly exposed, 140 pounds of pure chaos, and looked up at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. "Please tell me you understand he is not a guard dog," the shelter worker said. Her voice was careful, almost apologetic. Elena scratched that soft belly, watched Zen's eyes flutter closed in pure bliss. "I don't need a guard dog," she said quietly. "I just need a friend." She signed the papers 40 minutes later. The first week was beautiful chaos. Zen galloped through the apartment like a small horse, his oversized paws sliding across the hardwood, his tail clearing coffee tables in single wide arcs. He ate Elena's left slipper, only the left one, never the right, which Elena eventually accepted as simply his preference. He snored so loudly the neighbor knocked on the wall at 2 a.m. Elena knocked back twice. An agreement was reached. By his first birthday, Zen had hit 140 pounds of solid muscle, intimidating to anyone except anyone who actually spent 5 minutes with him. The neighborhood had opinions. "That's a Cane Corso?" the woman next door asked one morning, watching Zen try to chase a butterfly across the yard. "He acts like a puppy." Another neighbor was more direct. "I heard those dogs are supposed to be protective. Yours just tried to lick my toddler's face." Elena smiled. But in quiet moments, doubt crept in. What if they're right? What if Zen really was broken, some genetic misfire that left him fundamentally incomplete? If you're still watching but haven't subscribed yet, honestly, that breaks my heart a little. Hit that button right now. Trust me, you need to see what happens next. Zen had his routines. Every morning, without fail, he would army crawl into Elena's bed, 140 pounds, moving with the quiet stealth of a glacier, and press his enormous head onto her pillow until she woke up. Every night, he curled up on the floor beside her, his massive body filling the space between the bed and the wall like a warm, breathing wall of fur. Elena had long stopped trying to keep him in his own bed. He'd simply wait until she fell asleep, then silently return. It was their rhythm, unbreakable. Then came that Tuesday, ordinary in every way. Dinner, a walk, Netflix, bed. Elena fell asleep around 11 p.m., Zen's soft snoring the only sound in the apartment. The street outside was dead silent. At 3:42 a.m., a shadow moved across the bedroom window. Slow, deliberate, testing. The window was old. The lock had been loose for months. Elena kept meaning to fix it. The shadow knew this, had watched, had waited. Fingers wrapped around the frame and began to push it upward, just an inch, testing resistance, listening for alarms, for movement, for any sign that someone was awake inside. Nothing, just darkness. And then Zen woke up. His eyes snapped open. He lifted his head, nostrils flaring wide, every muscle in his 140-pound body coiling tight. He stood slowly, never taking his eyes off the window, off the fingers gripping the frame. For 3 full seconds, he didn't move, just stood there in the darkness, as something ancient and buried deep inside him roared slowly, quietly, completely to life. Then Zen's chest expanded, and he unleashed a bark that shattered the 3:42 a.m. silence like a bomb going off inside the walls. Not one bark, a continuous, primal explosion of sound that rattled the window glass, set off a car alarm on the street below, and turned the shadow into a pair of rapidly disappearing footsteps, gone in seconds, one shoe left behind on the fire escape. Elena shot upright, heart slamming. She saw Zen standing at the window, every inch of his 140-pound body locked in a stillness she had never seen before. Not the Zen who chased butterflies, not the Zen who stole left slippers and snored through the night. Something older, something that had been waiting. When the police arrived, they found fresh scratches on the window frame. They found the shoe. They found records of 3 other apartments in the building hit that same month. "That bark saved your life," the officer said simply. Elena knelt on the floor and wrapped both arms around Zen's neck. He leaned his full weight into her, all 140 pounds, and exhaled slowly, as if he'd been holding something in for a very long time. "Everyone said you were worthless," she whispered. Zen turned and licked her face, already, somehow, entirely himself again. Being a guardian doesn't always look like aggression. Zen protected Elena every single day with his presence, his warmth, his ridiculous snoring and his stolen slippers, and his 140-pound body pressed against her side at 11 p.m. He just saved the bark for when it truly mattered. Zen still sprawls across the couch, still demands belly rubs, still snores loud enough to shake the walls. But the window lock got fixed the very next morning, and Elena sleeps soundly now. 47 families walked past him, and the world called him worthless. But sometimes the ones the world gives up on are exactly the ones you need. Would you have given Zen a second chance, or walked past like the other 47? Tell me in the comments.